Thank you.
Good evening. On behalf of the Abingdon Town Council, we'd like to welcome everyone this evening to what I'll have to admit is a very unusual meeting for our organization and a very bittersweet sort of occasion, but we thank you all for being here this evening. A couple of housekeeping notes that I'll mention before we get started. Our council always receives a package of materials prior to each meeting to prepare us for the issues that we will be considering. On the table to my left is a copy of the preparation documents that we received. If anyone is interested in reviewing them, you're welcome to look over those documents and to help understand the issues that we might have before us tonight. Also, I would ask that if you have your cell phones with you, that you turn them off at the present time. I'm usually the one who forgets, but tonight I did remember. I would also like to acknowledge a number of special guests with us who are with us tonight. Certainly the Berry family, who is with us this evening, and we're particularly pleased to see Ainsley here tonight along with her family. Also Sean McMurray from Johnston Memorial, one of our Mayor Emeriti, Dr. French Moore, and Mr. Joe Strayton from the Washington County Board of Supervisors is also with us this evening, along with Mr. Tarek Zadie. We thank you all for being here this evening. That being said, I will ask our clerk to call the roll, please.
Mr. Howard?
Here.
Mr. Humphreys?
Here.
Mr. Berry?
Here.
Mrs. Lowe?
Here.
Mayor Morgan?
Here.
Let the record reflect that all 5 council members are present.
Thank you. At this time, I would ask Councilman Jason Berry if he would lead us in the Pledge of Allegiance.
If you'll stand for the Pledge of Allegiance.
Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you. Councilmember Berry has asked for a few minutes at the beginning of our meeting. He wishes to make an announcement to the group. Mr. Berry?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. As I think the council and Mr. Kelly and Ms. Rosamond know, this will be my last official meeting. I don't have prepared remarks, but as the public knows, I was appointed the new county administrator for Washington County effective September the 1st. Today was my first day on the job, so I'm currently wearing 2 hats, but will soon almost immediately resign from the town council. But before I make it official, I'd like to just say thank you for the magnificent ride for the last 5.5 years. When I moved back to Abingdon 7 years ago, I thought one day I might run for office, and I just got the bug a couple years into it, and I told my wife, I said, hey, let's run for office. And she shook her head like she is now. And probably thought I was crazy. She probably thinks I'm crazy now for being county administrator, but if she told me the truth. But no, she's very supportive. But, when you knock on almost 2,000 homes and talk to hundreds and thousands of citizens, you get to really know who the people are in the town of Abingdon. And I had a great pleasure doing that, along with my father and my mother and my brother. It became a family affair 5.5 years ago, and last May when the mayor and I ran for re-election. And I tell you, if you want to know people, you got to go to their homes. If you want to know what's really going on with people, you have to talk to them. And the mayor says it very often, the best government is local government. And I believe that. I look forward to the opportunities in the county. It's a big challenge. It's a larger territory, more people, more issues, but I welcome those challenges. I look forward to the opportunities. And I just thank the clerk for being here for the last 5.5 years. I've leaned over on her many times and asked a question, and vice versa, I guess, at times. And that's been a great joy to be on this side of the horseshoe. And Mr. Kelly will tell you there's 2 good places to be, here and where Mr. Humphreys is, probably. Unless you're the mayor, of course. But when it comes to information, it's kind of good to be near the staff. But I just would like to end by saying thank you for the voters for giving me an opportunity for 2 terms. Thank you all for working with me. The mayor said earlier, it's how sausage is made. We don't always agree. But what I can say about this council has been we've always found a way to agree or find a way to work together. And I think that's good government. We should disagree at times, but at the end of the day, we should do what's right for the citizens. And, not all governments do that, so I think we're very fortunate here in the town of Abingdon. So with that, I'd just like to thank my family, my wife, and I resigned. Sorry to get emotional.
Well, if there was ever time to get emotional, I think you've picked a good one. And if we keep at it, I might get there with you. This is it's been an interesting 5.5 years, 6 years, or how long?
Almost 6 years.
6 years that we've all of us here have had an opportunity to serve together, and I'm not going to repeat all the remarks that I made over at the Fields Penthouse, but the truth of the matter is that you've been a player. You've made great contributions to the community and to the town, and as I noted earlier, there have always been two things that have been high on your list. One was open government. You've always, strived to have the people's business out there, done to every extent that we can out in the public. You've always been very mindful of the pocketbook issues, trying to keep taxes down, trying to make sure that the money that we actually, receive from the people was wisely spent and for a good purpose. And that is exactly the kind of position and approach that I think the people of Washington County, which includes all of us who are residents of the town of Abingdon, are pleased that you're taking forward with you to your new position. It's going to be a little bit larger palette that you will be painting on here in the future, but we pledge that we will do everything we can to help you be successful, to help you move forward, because again, if you're successful, the county's successful, the town is successful. And the one thing that we are increasingly learning as time goes by is that when we really move things forward, it's when we work together, and share the resources and assets that we have, and understand that that everybody benefits when that happens. Now, I will give my fellow council members, is there anyone else who wishes to make any remarks at the present time?
The only thing I would say, Mr. Mayor, and it is that it's been my pleasure to be on the council with Jason. Jason has been great help to me. He's the older brother I never had. Yep. And thank you for being there for me, Jason.
And I'm going to echo, what the mayor has said. I have thoroughly enjoyed working with Jason. We've been friends. We have discussed many issues. We've agreed on some and we've not agreed on others, but we've always come to consensus. He's easy to work with and the county's lucky to have him.
Mr. Howard?
Let me echo that also. It's really appreciated the job you've done for the town. Enjoyed working with you these last few years.
We have I'm a little bit unsure of exactly the order of this, of how to proceed, but as a practical matter, I think at this point in time, it's appropriate for us to entertain a motion regarding your resignation. I think we are actually required to accept it even if we don't want to, and I will entertain a motion at the present time.
I so move, sir.
Second.
Okay, we have a motion and a second, and I suspect both of those things would be followed by the words that we would accept with regret and with all Godspeed the resignation of Councilman Berry, and we sincerely appreciate your service, and but we will continue to work with you to move everything forward. That being said, I'll ask our clerk to call the roll, please.
Mr. Howard?
Here.
Mr. Humphries?
Aye.
Mr. Berry? Would you like to abstain?
I'll abstain. I didn't think I was going to vote.
You may be mayor, but you still sort of
Just don't
screw it
vote,
up.
yeah. Mrs. Lowe?
I don't think it's
Aye.
Well, anyway.
Mayor Morgan?
Don't count.
Gotcha.
All right. Okay.
And I will, one thing I didn't say, Mr. Mayor, if I could add a PS to that is, I do look forward to working, I've told the Board of Supervisors this, I look forward to working with the town of Abingdon, the town of Glade Springs, the town of Damascus, and all other hills and hollows in between, because, you know, the county is several jurisdictions, so I look forward to the partnerships we could forge.
Very good, sir. And again, we wish you all the best. As might be expected, we do have a couple of presentations with, I think that would probably be in order, and we may join you down there in just a minute. But it's customary to have some parting gifts in situations like this, and we have some things that I think will be good tokens of our service together over the years. Mr. Kelly, have we got a couple of items here for
we do. I'd be happy to participate in handing those off to whoever would like to present them.
I'll come down, and we're going to have some pictures here, too.
You want to read the resolution first or give the gifts first?
Let's read the resolution first. You folks can tell that we're not used to doing this. I think the last time that a situation like this was handled, well, I don't know how long ago it was, but anyway, we hope to not make a habit of it either. But we thank you for your service, and at the present time, Council has, among other things, with the aid of our staff, put together a resolution, and I would call on our Vice Mayor, Mrs. Lowe, to read that resolution for our consideration.
A resolution of the Council of the Town of Abingdon, Virginia, recognizing Jason Nelson Berry for his years of service as a member of the Abingdon Town Council. Whereas Councilman Jason Nelson Berry is a hometown boy, having been born and raised in Abingdon, who went on to graduate from Abingdon High School, East Tennessee State University, and Virginia Commonwealth University. And whereas after college, Mr. Berry was employed by the Department of Defense in Washington, D.C. before returning to his beloved hometown of Abingdon, Virginia, to take the position of Executive Director of the Virginia Highlands Small Business Incubator. And whereas Mr. Berry, in an effort to serve the residents of his hometown, vied for and was elected to a seat on the Abingdon Town Council on May 2008 as one of the youngest members at the age of 32, and his first term in office began on July the 1st, 2008. And whereas Mr. Berry was elected to a second term on the Abingdon Town Council in May of 2012, and his second term of office began on July the 1st, 2012. And whereas while a member of the Abingdon Town Council, Mr. Berry served on the Board of Architectural Review, the Tourism Advisory Committee, the Veterans Park Memorial Board of Abingdon and Washington County, the Washington County Chamber of Commerce, where he received the 2012 Berry Fireball Leadership Award, and as the Vice Chairman and Council Representative of the Board of the King of School of Medicine. And whereas Mr. Berry, during his tenure on the Abingdon Town Council, has been proven advocate for economic development and growth in the town of Abingdon and Washington County, and in particular, helped spearhead the movement toward the development of the King School of Medicine within the town of Abingdon. And whereas Mr. Berry worked hard to foster a strong and mutually beneficial working relationship between the town of Abingdon and Washington County, and whereas on a personal note, the members of the council and town staff have shared milestones with Mr. Berry and his wife Courtney, who welcomed the birth of their daughter Ainsley while Mr. Berry was serving on council, and further experienced their daughter's first steps at a council work session meeting on April 17th, 2013. And whereas on August the 13th, 2013, the members of the Washington County Board of Supervisors announced that Mr. Berry had been hired as the county administrator beginning September the 1st, 2013, and Mr. Berry thereafter tendered his resignation as a member of the Abingdon Town Council on September the 3rd, 2013, and now, therefore be it resolved by the Council of the Town of Abingdon, Virginia, that the Council does hereby applaud and commend Jason Nelson Berry for his honorable service to the citizens of the town of Abingdon as a council member and as an advocate for growth and development, and for his overall contributions to improve the quality of life in the town of Abingdon as a whole. Be it further resolved that the Council of the Town of Abingdon and the town staff wish him the very best as he brings a new chapter of public service with Washington County, Virginia.
Council, I would entertain a motion regarding this resolution. What's your pleasure, please?
I move that we accept the resolution.
And I'll second that.
Okay, we have a motion and a second to adopt the resolution as presented. I'll ask our clerk to call the roll, please.
Mr. Howard?
Aye.
Mr. Humphries?
Aye.
Mrs. Lowe?
Aye.
And Mayor Morgan?
Aye. Thank you very much, and I think applause is appropriate for the council. All right, I'm going to slip down here. It is appropriate for all of us who have been on council, as you know, there is a tradition of providing certain things to our council members, one of which is a copy of our town seal. We look forward to seeing that hanging in your new offices. Would you care to show him that? And it is suitably signed by the staff and all of us here on council. Okay, thank you. I will.
Could get everybody over here.
So we can shift it. We can
That's fine, right there is fine.
Okay. All right, we can. Yeah, let's come. Let's do a little different shot. That's probably doing it pretty simple. Very good. Consideration, and one of which is, I have another item for you, and believe it or not, while I do pass out a lot of lapel pins, I don't give out many of these, and, our mayor who preceded me, she got a key to her own caboose. For you, we have a key to the executive washroom. No. Actually, we have a key to the town, and you're one of the very few people that we've ever presented this to. And again, we thank you for your service. And, continue to do for us in Washington County. There is a little container for it. And Mr. Kelly, what's this over here? You've got something else.
I need some help, and this is very delicate, so this is something else you may also want to hang in the office, but we'll let you choose one.
And we'll come check.
Wow.
But it's a painting by a local artist here in town, Kyle Buckland, who's very well known, as you know.
Get a little closer there, Jason.
And it's still wet.
It's still.
It's fresh off the press.
Wow.
Actually, I have the Kyle Buckland of the courthouse. It was hung in my office today, so this will be added with that in the office. Here. There'll be two Kyle Bucklands in the office.
Very good. I think there's one other item out here.
Okay.
Ms. Rosenbaum, have you got?
Sean, am I checking in the hospital tomorrow? I may
We don't have a jersey number to retire, but we do have a nameplate there, and we look forward to seeing that on your desk when we come to visit. Thank you for all that you have done and continue to do for the community. And, God bless you. And thanks. I want to give you a hug. All right.
Thank you all very much.
Oh, thank you.
This is more than, thank you.
You can't touch it.
Do not touch this.
You're ready.
Ainsley, do not touch
And
this.
all mothers need a copy.
That's right, Jason.
So here is the resolution.
Are you serious?
Yeah, hey Kathy, we're gonna get that framed.
No, that's not the one.
It's for,
Oh, okay.
That's for his mother. His is coming.
Now, Mr. Berry, you're welcome to stay. as the mood suits you, but, we're always pleased to have you with us. Okay. Yay! All righty. Okay, council, we have several sets of minutes for our consideration this evening. We have the August 5th, 2013 work session minutes, and also the minutes from the regular meeting of that occasion, and then the minutes of our August the 16th retreat and work session. Are there any corrections or additions that need to be noted? All right, hearing none, what is your pleasure, please, regarding this?
Unless somebody's noted some changes, I'll go ahead and make a motion. We go ahead and approve all three sets.
Okay. Is there a second?
I'll second that.
We have a motion and second to approve the minutes as presented. Any further comment? Hearing none, Ms. Rosenbaum, please.
Mr. Howard?
All right.
Mr. Humphries?
Aye.
Mrs. Lowe?
Aye.
Mayor Morgan?
Aye. Okay, also tonight we have the second reading of an ordinance, which is an ordinance of the Council of the Town of Abingdon, Virginia, to repeal, amend, and reenact Chapter 38, Health and Sanitation, Article 2, Condition of Premises of the Code of Ordinances of the Town of Abingdon. Ms. Eisenhower, if you would briefly refresh us of what we have before us tonight.
Be happy to, Mr. Mayor and Honorable Council. My help gets here. This ordinance amendment enabled pursuant to the Code of Virginia 1950, 15.2, 1115, adds to the existing ordinance two definitions, parcel and hardship, along with some language authorizing the town manager to exercise discretion based upon a three-part test in certain hardship-type situations. We've looked and discussed the amendment since the July 1 meeting when the public hearing was held, and the legal department has worked with code compliance and the amendment of the ordinance as the amendment would better clarify and make for easy enforcement. The legal department therefore recommends adoption of this amended ordinance, which would make it effective October 3rd, 2013.
Thank you very much. Again, this is the been before us for our consideration at the July meeting. Does anybody have any questions or comments about this? What is your pleasure regarding this action, please?
Mr. Mayor, I move we adopt the ordinance amendment as presented. Yes,
Okay.
thank you.
Very good. We have a motion to adopt this on the second reading as presented.
I'll second that.
And a second. Any further comments or questions? Hearing none, I'll ask our clerk to call the roll, please.
Mr. Howard?
Aye.
Mr. Humphries?
Aye.
Mrs. Lowe?
Aye.
Mayor Morgan?
Aye. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
All righty, thank you. And also tonight, we have several reports. We've had a request from Mr. Sean McMurray, Chief Executive Officer of Johnston Memorial Hospital, who wishes to address us this evening. Mr. McMurray, come forward, please.
Mr. Mayor, thank you very much. Members of the council, appreciate your time this evening. My apologies to the Berry family who listened to this the last time I gave it in front of the Board of Supervisors. So I believe that you've been sent a copy of this presentation ahead of time.
Yes.
And you have it. What I want to talk about tonight is just take a few minutes and sort of share the state of healthcare right now, and also talk a little bit about what our response as a local community hospital is to the changes that are going on in our industry. First slide that you see is about unsustainable healthcare. As you look down this list, I don't think anybody would be surprised. We know that the federal budget deficit is certainly not sustainable. Frankly, healthcare is probably the single biggest culprit as we drive our nation towards bankruptcy. We look at the increases in the cost of the Medicare budget. That's problematic. We know that the population is aging, and that's likely to become a bigger issue in the future. As a country, we spend more of our economy on health care than any other developed country in the world. And it's really not even close. Over 18%. And of course, every dollar we spend on health care is a dollar that is not available to spend on education or on infrastructure or on manufacturing, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. Our Medicaid programs are currently challenged financially, and right now there's a real pushback on any Medicaid expansion. And then finally, in the old days, healthcare institutions, providers used to push the costs when they lost money on Medicare and Medicaid to the private insured folks. And that's not possible anymore. We're seeing a lot of pushback from the private sector, from those who offer commercial insurance. To make things more complicated locally, we'll turn to the next slide, community health status. Our community is not particularly healthy. We do have high rates of obesity in this region, very high prevalence of diabetes. We've got high death rates related to heart disease, and we just generally are not in good health. And what that means is it's expensive to take care of our population. You move to the next slide, the Affordable Care Act. Just lots of questions there. While we're implementing parts of that legislation now, we've seen some significant cuts to reimbursements for hospitals and doctors and others. But there are lots of questions. One of the things that, of course, has happened recently is the original provision which would require all employers with over 50 employees to offer health insurance, that has been pushed back into the future. So lots of question marks there. Frankly, what's going on with the Affordable Care Act is really no different than what's going on in the private sector. Everyone is pushing back on the extraordinary expense that we invest in healthcare in our country. Next slide, private sector response. What are folks doing about it? Well, you're seeing lots of employers who are now offering wellness programs or incentives to their team members. And we're also seeing a lot of health plan redesign. Larger deductibles and co-pays, people having to bear more of the cost out of pocket. We're also seeing restructuring on these health plans to include lower or no co-pays if people use a very specific set of providers who are considered low cost and high quality. But lots of things going on there. And then also we're seeing that insurance companies are negotiating lower and lower payments with hospitals, physicians, and other providers. I'd like to talk just a moment about individual responsibility. We don't read much about that in the Affordable Care Act, but the reality is, as health plans are changing and people are having to bear more of the cost personally for their health care, it's starting to impact behavior. And people are sometimes less likely to use healthcare services. Personal experience, had a family member who required an echocardiogram for an insurance exam and knew that he was going to have to pay for it out of pocket himself, so he called around in the area and looked at the price for this particular procedure at both of our regional health systems, found them both to be fairly expensive, ultimately chose local cardiology practice, Mountain States Medical Group Cardiology, to receive that at just a fraction of the cost. And I think you're going to see more and more people, as the incentives change, become more savvy shoppers when it comes to their health care. Next page, JMH and Mountain States' response to some of these changes that are going on in healthcare. We did form an accountable care organization called A New Care. It's designed so that we can actually better manage the health of specific populations of people. And that could be a group like our own employees at Mountain States. It could be a group of Medicare beneficiaries. It could be any number of groups. Another thing that we've done, knowing that healthcare is going to have to decrease its cost, is we've gotten very invested in lean. You'll recall that Toyota came up with that concept over 40 years ago as a way to try to improve processes for their customers, and it's found its way to healthcare. We now are trying to use the lean tools to try to make our processes better, more efficient, and certainly a better value for our patients. We recently opened Health Plus and Pharmacy on our campus. We're really not insane. We don't intend to try to compete with Walmart or Walgreens for their pharmacy business, but what we do have concerns about is nationally, 27% of all patients, when they're discharged from the hospital, never get their first prescription filled. And that tends to result in a poor outcome. They don't generally stay well. We have reason to believe that in our area that there is an even higher percentage of folks who don't get the prescriptions filled when they leave the hospital. So we established this service first and foremost to be able to make sure our patients get prescriptions when they leave the hospital. Fortunately, we have a very kind auxiliary, our volunteers who raise money, and one of the things they do is they support us in medications for those who are not able to afford them. And so this is a way for us to be able to try to improve care. We have new care models out there. You may have heard of something called the patient-centered medical home, and you'll see more of that in the future, where essentially a physician's practice becomes a vehicle by which they try to improve the population of their practice. Particular focus is paid on those with chronic health conditions like congestive heart failure and COPD and diabetes. They're given extra attention and ideas to try to keep people well so they don't have to use the services of the hospital. And then finally, chronic disease management. We, of course, have a diabetes center that is very, very busy trying to teach people how to better manage their diabetes. We've got a pilot program going for those with congestive heart failure. And we're also trying to move to a special program with our home health agency where they actually see certain people with chronic conditions within the first 24 hours of their discharge from the hospital. So those are some of the things that we're trying to do to respond to the changing environment in healthcare. Some recent developments at JMH, we were accredited as an advanced stroke center. We've developed some important relationships from which we think we can learn a lot. Vanderbilt Health System, as well as Cincinnati Children's Hospital, which is widely regarded as one of the best in the world, as well as we've had a longer-standing relationship with St. Jude's Children's Research Hospital, particularly for pediatric cancer patients. We continue to expand our heart and cancer services, and one of the things we've really struggled with in the community is our billing and collections, and we're trying to improve there. One of the things we've done and implemented as of July 1st is more flexible payment options for our patients, including the financing of their accounts for up to 3 years at no interest. Next page, physician recruitment. This is one of our big investments. It generally takes physicians a few years to really get fully busy in their practices. And so as we bring new physicians into town, we subsidize the cost of that. As you can see, these are our physicians who joined us this past year. And we're fortunate to be able to have a very good medical staff in this community. The last slide, community benefit. Just want to remind the council that we do a lot in the community, and sometimes it's maybe not noticed. We had a study done at ETSU a couple of years ago, and they determined that not including the construction project on our new campus, that on an ongoing basis, that JMH is responsible for an economic impact of over $105 million a year in this community. Uncompensated care, last year we provided over $10 million of charity care. And then something that we didn't see directly, but we actually spent $18 million on subsidizing physician practices, and that's kind of a hidden cost, but if it were not for that, many of the physicians who are in this community would not be here, and that's a significant investment for us. Also, we spend a lot of resources on educational support. We give scholarships to all the area high schools. We also are a training site for physicians, nurses, and other healthcare providers. You may not know this, but we actually provide the total cost of one of the nursing faculty at Virginia Highlands Community College each year. If not for that, they would not be able to run the program at the level they run it today. cultural development, we've been supporters of the Barter Theater and William King Museum in particular. Again, as we try to recruit physicians to the community, it's really important for them to have that cultural experience that is available here in Abingdon, and so we support that as well. And then United Way, we've always been big supporters. This year, our campaign just completed. We were an early bird campaign. We raised $47,000, and that's one of the largest campaigns in the community. So again, we try to support the community in a number of ways, and just want to encourage you and our other local community members just to support the hospital, and we know that it's a resource that can't be taken for granted, especially in today's healthcare environment. There's lots of change, declining reimbursements, and it becomes more and more difficult each year to manage a hospital. So with that, I'm happy to answer any questions you might have about either the hospital or the industry.
You know, something sparked my interest when you said, and I heard this presentation at the Board of Supervisors, but I didn't hear you say that until just now, was you said that the Affordable Care Act, as far as the over 50 employees, that is not, that's been pushed back. Can you explain that just a little bit?
A number of the provisions have been delayed a year, and we're seeing that more and more frequently with different aspects. Now, the one thing that is not being delayed is the cuts to reimbursement. Another thing that was promised in the beginning was that we would take these cuts as providers, physicians, hospitals, etc., but what would counterbalance that would be the increased expansion in coverage through Medicaid programs and other means. Well, what's happened is we've gotten the cuts, they've all started, but we haven't seen any expansion of coverage of the uninsured. So it's created a very challenging environment.
Okay. Yeah.
Well, as somebody who works in healthcare, myself, I can definitely agree that the reality of being in healthcare today and managing it as a business is extremely challenging, to say the least. And those cuts in reimbursement are real. And I know that Virginia has been very cautious about expanding its Medicaid program, but the reality of it is that that situation leaves an awful lot of us who are responsible for providing some level of indigent care. And I hope that we'll achieve a balance before too long on some of this, because it is a difficult time to be in healthcare. There's no doubt about that. I want to thank you for bringing us up to date about several aspects of the service that Johnston Memorial provides in the community. I would also encourage you and your staff, when you have a prospect who is looking to come to the area, to feel free to work with our tourism and marketing department. We have folks that would be more than happy to help, provide tours and encouragement to, physicians that are looking at the area, and to really sort of reinforce that message. And those folks, I believe, Mr. Kelly, I'm correct in saying that they would be, be out there to really help you in that effort, because it is important to have.
Thank you very much. We appreciate that support, and they have helped us in the past.
Very good. Very good. Any other questions? Well, we thank you. It's a fine facility.
Appreciate your time.
And, we look forward to working with you on other projects in the near future.
Absolutely. Thank you.
Very good, sir. All righty. Now, that brings us to items that are not on the agenda. I'm going to put Ms. Eisenhower on the spot here for just a moment, because I think it would probably behoove us, considering the announcement and action that we took a little earlier today, if she could perhaps bring our group up to speed in terms of how we proceed from this point. And I believe you know what I'm referencing.
I believe that I do. I believe that I sent an email which pretty much summarized this. Too bad my iPad wouldn't bring it up. So we'll start by referring to the Virginia Code 24.2-228, which refers to interim appointments with regard to a vacancy on the council. Within 15 days of the vacancy, which has occurred today, the legal department will file a petition with the court to set a special election. And since we've determined through the State Board of Elections that any chance, any opening for having a November election is already passed, then we will go for a May 2014 election. In addition to our 3 regular seats that will be up at that point, we will also have a 2-year position that will be located on the ballot, but located further down so that they're distinguishable. We would expect the court to affirm that petition. And gives us 45 days, you, the council, the remaining members of the council, 45 days to choose from the group of qualified registered voters within the town of Abingdon a replacement for the interim, which would be to serve until June 30th, the night before the July 1 installation of the new council. Let me see. So we do have a prepared ad for the paper on Sunday, which sets forth that letters of interest would be accepted. But if there were other candidates that the council would feel qualified, then you certainly have the authority to do that as well. Does that cover with detail?
I believe it does, and if my recollection of the advertisement is correct, we are basically going to be advertising that a position is available. We are encouraging parties who are interested to submit a letter of interest for our consideration.
Exactly.
It is our intention to interview parties that have expressed an interest in, filling the position that is available. And if I understand it correctly, the position, whoever we appoint, will serve until May of 2013, when there will be another election that will take place, 2014. Basically, we would make an appointment. That person would serve until June the 30th of 2014. And then when we have our regular election cycle, there will be 3 positions that will be available as part of the normal routine, and then other persons may run to complete the unfinished term of Mr. Jason Berry. I think
Exactly.
that's how it would be listed on the ballot. So 4 people will be up for election at the next time, and I won't be one of them. I'll be the only one who will get a ride, so to speak, for at least another 2 years there, which is a remarkable thing.
We do have a prepared advertisement or notice for the newspaper that will be running on Sunday. That's right, Madam Clerk.
But it will go up tomorrow
On the website.
on the website and
Right.
go out on our social media as well. So we can start accepting letters tomorrow.
And Ms. Rosenbaum will accept those through, 5 o'clock on September 20th. Now, remember that should the 4 of you fail to make that interim appointment, that, I think, what is it, October 18th? Makes our 45th day past this day, then the judge will do it.
Okay.
That's per
What day is
our-
that, October 18th?
I believe that was the date. I couldn't find that on my email.
45 days from the day.
A resignation.
Right.
And so since there are only 4 of us, it takes 3.
It does take the majority of the remaining council,
Okay.
so.
And if I understand it to be considered for the position, it's necessary that you be a registered voter, do you have to be a registered voter?
You do, yes, we do. And we had a little discussion about this. There was a little concern. If you register to vote in the state, you're automatically registered in your town or city.
Okay.
So we know that because we've been voting for council,
And you have to be a citizen of the town of
a
Abingdon.
resident of the town of Abingdon.
And I will, just for your information, once I compile the lists by the deadline, I will submit that to Mary Ann Compton, our local voter registrar. She will confirm the voter registration for each person who's expressed a letter of interest, and then you will get provided that information.
All right. So tell your friends and neighbors. And I'm optimistic we'll have a number of very qualified candidates who will express an interest in being considered. Does anyone have, counsel, do you have any questions of Ms. Eisenhower, Ms. Rosenbaum, or Mr. Kelly at the present time regarding this matter? Okay. Now, see what kind of trouble you've caused for us. All right. Thank you. At this point in time, Mr. Kelly, I think you're prepared to talk to us about the columbarium.
Yes, Mr. Mayor, members of council, if you will recall, several months ago, the Sinking Spring Cemetery Committee was authorized by the council to study the possibility of a columbarium being located in the cemetery. It was the recommendation of the cemetery committee that we proceed with the design of a columbarium in the cemetery. Quinn Crockwell was hired to come up with a design for that. She actually developed, I believe, 3 designs that were presented to each of the members of the cemetery committee at the time. One was a preferable design. They all were very attractive and would greatly enhance the cemetery. As with many things, the problem with the columbarium was the cost that was going to be associated with constructing it. We had Quinn basically break the columbarium process down into 3 stages. The first was the actual construction of the columbarium. There was also the construction of a memorial wall, because we do have a lot of folks who would like to just have a nameplate of a relative placed in the cemetery in memory. Perhaps their ashes have been scattered elsewhere or they've been buried elsewhere, but were from the Abingdon area. And also the discussion of an arboretum or nice landscaping of the cemetery as a whole. After we reviewed the plans and chose the one that we were most preferable with, we discovered that the price tag was several hundreds of thousands of dollars for the columbarium. The actual memorial wall was much less than that, and as was the landscaping. It was recommended by the cemetery committee at that time that we proceed with attempting to get some of the local funeral homes or other folks involved in seeing if they were willing to own and construct a columbarium in the cemetery, and they would actually sell the niches and handle the business aspects of that. It was further recommended that the town proceed with perhaps in an upcoming budgeting for a memorial wall and some of the landscaping to take place. We could not get any interest by way of telephone communications to the local funeral directors in terms of whether or not they would be willing to do this. So we thought that the best process would be to put this out for a request for proposals, not encumbering any of the town's money, but to try to see if we could get an interest of some individual who is in the funeral business or the cemetery business who might be willing to come in, and the town could actually give ownership or a long-term lease of a certain portion of the cemetery for them to construct and handle all the business aspects of selling off the niches in light of how much it was going to cost. We viewed this as a multi-stage type of situation because, as the mayor will recall, this was a 1,000-year plan.
Yes, sir.
So it would ultimately handle a lot of people over the course of the next 1,000 years, and we thought it was something that could be phased in. To not get into any ownership issues or whatever, we targeted the portion of property that the town acquired as a result of the Taylor's Hill redevelopment project, which is currently just outside the fence along Russell Road. It's sort of shaped like a football, and the theory being that the fence could be moved and that the columbarium and the memorial wall could be constructed in that area, at least the phase 1, and then we would get the town arborists on board to assist in various plantings within the cemetery. So what I'm here before council tonight is just asking the council if this is a route that you would like to go down, and if so, I'm happy to have the staff prepare the appropriate request for proposals and get it out there and see if we get any inquiries into some entity that would like to do this.
Very good. So in other words, this would be a process of moving it forward and seeing if there was potential to develop a private-public partnership with this particular service.
That's correct, and what I'm asking tonight is not spending any of the town's money or asking that any funds be appropriated for this, other than, just the cost of advertising for the RFP.
Okay. Council, does anyone have any questions about this?
Mr. Mayor, I think this is probably the next best foray that we proceed with, given the extraordinary cost of the 1,000-year columbarium.
Yeah.
I think that probably that we need to look at all alternatives. This would be a good first step, I do believe.
Very good, sir. Would you care to make a motion regarding that?
I will. I move that we, hold on just a second. I move that we authorize Town Manager Greg Kelly to proceed with an RFP for the construction of columbarium to see, for us to view the potential of participants in a public-private partnership.
Okay, is there a second? Okay, is there comment, just further discussion? Hearing none, I'll ask our clerk to call roll, please.
Mr. Howard?
Aye.
Mr. Humphries?
Aye.
Mrs. Lowe?
Aye.
Mayor Morgan?
Aye. Okay. We have a variety of, a couple of other items to consider this evening, but that brings us to items under the category of matters not on the agenda. Is there anyone present tonight who wishes to address the council on a specific topic? Okay. Hearing none, I believe that Mr. Zadie is with us this evening. You'd indicated that you had a matter that you wish to bring forward to the council?
Yes.
Okay.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor, members of the council, Mr. Kelly. Just wanted to bring forth, we have been taking a look at, first of all, we put in a most recent update for the town and the council and the county, which has been sent out and may be on your iPads, but there certainly will be some additional information to follow. Over the course of the last several months, we've been working very diligently on moving this project forward, and as everybody knows, it's sort of a big task, a big undertaking, but we've been able to get a lot of success in terms of working with our potential partners. We've had a number of discussions with East Tennessee State University and the Quinlan College of Medicine. They are incredibly committed to the project, to the point where you have all the way up to the university president. I was on 3 calls today with him, and he himself has taken on a huge amount of work with respect to this project because they want to see this happen. And that's very comforting and I think reassuring to everyone that you've got a university with the expertise and not just the expertise, but the success that they've had in 35 years of medical education in the area. So they know the area, they know how to do it, and we've sort of built the project to a point in time where we've done our due diligence, we feel like it's really feasible. Let's bring the experts in and now get the lawyer out of the way and try and build a medical school the right way that's going to be around for a long time. So we're very excited about that. We expect to have at least the terms of our final agreement October, November, which is moving pretty quickly if you talk about a major university, a state-funded university at that rate. So we're very pleased with that. Mr. McMurray's here, and we've had some good communications and met with Johnson Memorial Hospital. We're really intent on forming a partnership with them, and we're now talking about the potential proposal and what that might look like for Johnson Memorial and what we can bring to the table at East Tennessee State University, Quinlan College of Medicine, and the School of Medicine. We've also, we're working on changing the name from the King School of Medicine to the Southwest Virginia School of Medicine. What we feel that does is really reflect the commitment to the community and this region And then this is a school that is going to be built by the region and for the region, for the people of this area. And to that end, in your report, if you'll take a look at, there is a proposed structure that the medical school is considering adopting. What that structure is really goes to the point of protecting everybody's interests. What it would be is you're going to have a foundation, which is a 501c3, set up in Virginia as a Virginia entity, so that the money that we raise stays in Virginia. That gives everybody comfort that it's money that's going to stay here in this region. It's not going to go across the state line. It's going to fund our operations. It's going to support us. And then in the event that, for some reason, we aren't successful, then that money goes to local charities and stays in Virginia. And so it's not, we're raising the money from within to stay within. We'll have a separate operating company that will form the agreements with ETSU. Emory and Henry, hopefully we're talking with them as well, and we feel like that's really exciting to bring on, and again, another part of our commitment to the community. And that will be the operating entity that will run the medical school. And then you'll have the building itself will be in the current 501c3 as that's funded by tobacco, the town, and the county. And so what we're trying to do is make sure everybody's interests are protected, but also make sure that people are aware this is still a Virginia project, and though it's going to have ETSU's stamp on it, that's a good thing. They know how to do it, and they know how to move things forward, and they can do it in a very successful way. It's very much going to be an asset of this community. So we're working on that. We do have, speaking of RFPs, we put together an RFP and had a committee that was made up of Mayor Morgan, John Dew, and Ms. Eisenhower, along with French Moore, who's here. I think we have the whole committee here in essence, and put out requests for proposal for a planning, or the PAR. I know the acronym, I can't remember. Planning Architectural Report. So that is going to take a look at what it's going to take to build the school, look at the sites, and really get the details together. In a packet that you'll be getting electronically, you have the proposal that was accepted by Thompson and Litton. It's a very thick document, but they've put together an incredibly strong team, not just of Thompson and Litton. They went out and they got architects. They have the onboard, the medical education specialist for that worked on the technology for the University of Virginia's facility for simulation, so they know that space. So they're really putting together, have a very robust team that's put together, so I think everybody's going to be very excited about what they're going to be able to do for us. But that, of course, is funded out of the $250,000 planning grant, so that is a funded project. So that's, and it's moving forward. We expect hopefully to see some designs and some early reports within the next few weeks. At the same token, we're also working on an economic impact analysis report, which we expect probably at the end of the month, maybe early in the next month. That'll give everybody a good picture of what our project really looks like and the impact that we're going to be able to have. We continue to talk with other potential partners. Emory and Henry we're bringing along, and we've had some good discussions with them, and we hope we can put together a partnership that is more global. Virginia Highlands Community College and other institutions around. I mean, we really want to build this to the point where it is an asset of the community and built for the community. We've had some discussions with Life Point hospitals. We had some really exciting discussions with Life Point hospitals that they embrace the concept, and I think they have said that they are interested in participating with us on clinical spaces, residencies, and other things. So that will, we hope, bear fruit very soon. We are, as I've spoken with many of you, we're working on the one piece that we've got to put together, which is sort of the 800-pound gorilla. It's the most important piece. It's the private sector money. We're having conversations right now with people that we believe are going to invest in this project. As I've said to many people along the way, I feel like we've got one good shot to raise the money. We've had to take some time and bring some people along, and it's been a long process. I mean, there's no question about it, but we appreciate your patience as we appreciate everybody else's, because we really feel like we've got a project that everybody can be proud of. It's going to be much more reasonably priced. We feel like it's got the expertise on board now, and it's going to be built in a way that this community needs. And so having those pieces in place, this is really the first time I feel we can go and say, we've told you what we're going to do, we brought you along, let's go and do this. And so far, the response has been pretty positive, so we hope that's going to bear fruit very soon. In fact, I feel very good about it. And so that is the report. There is going to follow, as I said, electronically, a host of information. I mean, we're putting everything, giving you as much information as we possibly can about the project. And then we're going to follow up and try and schedule some individual meetings, should you all want, to sit down and to answer questions about it, to go through the numbers, to go through the plan of how we look like we're going to set this up and those things, because we want you to be involved. You should be, but you also need to have an opportunity to ask the questions in a to the extent that, and have all the time you can, that often a forum like this doesn't present itself for. So we'll probably be working through somebody to set those meetings up here in the near future. But we really welcome the input and the help from that. Which then brings us to the next point of business while we're here. The grant or the agreement that was entered into among the town and the county, and originally the School of Medicine, King School of Medicine, which was amended in May or June to replace us with the School of Medicine, is set has a date of September 15th. What we're asking is for an amendment to that, and really just an extension, same terms and everything that are in place, to go through the end of the year. I think it's a 4-month extension about that. We're going to be meeting this month again with Johnson Memorial Hospital, hopefully, or at least talking further with them. With Tobacco Commission, September 25th we have that meeting, and then we've got Washington County meeting next week. So it's a busy month, and I think as we get through the back end of September, everything will be very clear to us on how we move forward. But so that everybody knows, there's no additional ask for funds or anything under that. We expect to just to try, and if you'll give us the time to show that we can perform on this, we'd appreciate it.
So as I understand it, well, first of all, thank you for bringing us up to date about progress that is being made, and I have watched the work that has developed over the last number of months since you've been involved with this, and it has moved forward in a way that it's not been previously, and it's been a pleasure to see it come along. If I understand it correctly, you were indicating that the agreement we had with the King School of Medicine was set to expire on the 15th of September, and you were essentially asking us to extend that agreement through the December 31st of 2013 under the same terms and commitments as we've had previously, not asking for any additional money or any other modification. And if I'm understanding you correctly, you anticipate that by that time we'll know that if whether or not everything is coming together or whether it's not, or how this is going to shake out. Am I correct in stating that?
You're absolutely correct. I mean, I think every project has a shelf life. I think in many ways we may be past the date of expiration on some things, but we believe that if this project is going to come together, that the way it's going to come together is the way that we put it together, and that we will know without a doubt in the next couple of months, and I think even within the next 6 weeks to 2 months as far as things are going. So we know you all have been very patient, you've been very supportive, and I truly, truly appreciate that. It's a big project. I think it has incredible potential, and we're just asking that you allow us to do what the Tobacco Commission has done, and give us a little time to put things into place.
Mr. Zadie, if I might, it's September 16th.
September 16th. Wow, I had an extra day.
Okay. Are there questions or comments of Mr. Zadie at the present time? Anybody?
Mr. Mayor and members of council, I would just like to comment, and I may have mentioned this in the manager's report or at a prior meeting, but a month or so ago, I had occasion to have a meeting with representatives from DHCD and the Tobacco Commission. I believe Mr. Zadie was in on the teleconference call with that, as Ms. Eisenhower and perhaps Mr. Jackson was there with me. Both of those organizations expressed that they really felt that this project was moving to the point of fruition. And it's the first time that I've heard either one of those organizations ever mention that in that light. And so I certainly think that an extension of a 4-month period of time is very minimal in terms of the possibility of getting the benefit that this brings to the table.
Are there other comments or thoughts on that? Again, Council, we've had a request to extend the agreement we have with the King School of Medicine through the 31st of December. Again, the same terms and so forth of the agreement that we have right now. Would someone care to make a motion regarding this matter?
Mr. Mayor, I move that we grant the King School of Medicine operating as
The Southwest Virginia School of Medicine.
Southwest Virginia School of Medicine, I like that better. I move that we grant them the requested extension.
Mr. Mayor?
Yes, sir.
I think we probably need to also authorize Greg Kelly to authorize that.
And authorize Mr. Kelly to execute that agreement.
That's correct.
Okay, very good.
I'll second that.
All right, we have a motion and a second to grant the requested extension through the 31st of December and to authorize our town manager to enter into that particular agreement. Other questions or comments? Hearing none, I'll ask our clerk to call roll, please.
Mr. Howard?
Aye.
Mr. Humphrey?
Aye.
Mrs. Lowe?
Aye.
Mayor Morgan?
Aye. Okay, thank you. Thank you
Thank you
very much.
and thank you for the comments. I really appreciate it. And your loss is our loss, too. Mr. Berry was on the board since we sort of reformed things. He's been an instrumental part of this project. I think it's come a very long way because of him. Certainly ETSU, I don't think would be at the table if it were not from him. And so we're sharing your loss, though. We're glad he's still going to be there and part of the project as it moves forward and part of Washington County. So just wanted to say that and to thank him for all his help.
Thank you, sir.
Thank you.
Okay, that brings us to item J, which is miscellaneous business and communications. We do have several appointments to consider this evening. Mr. Berry, as I understand it, as noted a moment ago, has resigned from his position representing the town on the King School of Medicine Board, and it does appear to be necessary for us to make a new appointment to that board. Do you care to make a nomination at the present time?
I do, Mr. Mayor. I would like to move that Ed Morgan fill that spot from the town council.
Second.
Okay, thank you, and I am willing to serve. Is there any further discussion or comments? Ms. Rosenbaum, if you'll call the roll, please.
Mr. Howard?
Aye.
Mr. Humphrey?
Aye.
Mrs. Lowe?
Aye.
Mayor Morgan?
Aye, thank you. We have also an appointments of new board members for our consideration to the Fairview at Abingdon Committee. We have been proposed for our consideration Mr. Ron Stevenson, Carol McCroskey, and an alternative, Mr. Mac Johnson. Mr. Humphreys, would you care to make any comment about that? You're representing us on that committee.
Yes, I would. There are several members that came up for whatever reason. Probably 85% of our members came up and were not able to appoint them to additional terms, so it kind of left us in a kind of a lame duck situation. What I would like to see happen is that Ron Stevenson and Carol McCroskey be appointed as additional members, and we restructure the Fairview Committee to whether we have 1 and 2 year alternating terms for the ones that actually were not eligible right now, so that we'll have a staggered committee. This is one of the few committees that I guess when the council went to their staggered committee, we went to our staggered committee lineup, that this committee kind of fell through the cracks and was not in that staggered committee, although everyone almost expired at one time. So if we could just go ahead and appoint these members, and then by next meeting, I'll have the recommendations on 1 and 2 years. That'll give me time to talk to our committee members to see which ones would like to be on 1 year and 2 year, and then after that stagger, we'll be able to have new members.
And I'll bet you that was a motion right there.
It actually was, sir.
Okay. All right, very good, sir. And I'll entertain a second.
I'll second.
Okay, we have a motion and a second to appoint Mr. Ron Stevenson and Carol McCroskey, and also an alternate, Mr. Mac Johnson, to the Fairview at Abingdon Committee. Any further discussion or comment? Hearing none, Ms. Rosenbaum, if you'll call the roll, please.
Mr. Howard?
Aye.
Mr. Humphrey?
Aye.
Mrs. Lowe?
Aye.
Mayor Morgan?
Aye. Okay, we also have an appointment for the Redevelopment and Housing Authority Board. We need to appoint a member to fill the unexpired term of Miss Betty Ferrier, who passed away on the 20th of February, 2013. I would entertain a motion, do we have a nomination at the present time?
I can report that I did not receive any additional applications except for the one that you saw at last month's meeting.
Okay, Council, do you wish to act on this tonight or table it until our October meeting?
Mr. Mayor, I'd like to probably table this, and also, as we'll look back, it looks like that Rosie Jones possibly, has she expired?
We paid her last month.
Okay,
Yeah,
very good.
she's good.
It's just not up to date on this one yet.
Okay. Hearing no objection, I will ask this be put on the appointment be put on our October agenda, please. Okay, and that brings us to the Sinking Spring Cemetery Committee. We have, first of all, Mr. David Winship, who is eligible to be reappointed for a second term. I might entertain, first of all, a motion regarding Mr. Winship's appointment.
I also move that we appoint David Winship for a second term.
Okay, a second, please. Have a motion and a second to reappoint David Winship to the Sinking Spring Cemetery Committee, and we've noted that he is eligible to serve a second term. Any discussion? Ms. Rosenbaum, please.
Mr. Howard?
Aye.
Mr. Humphries?
Aye.
Mrs. Lowe?
Aye.
Mayor Morgan?
Aye. Okay, there are three other positions available on the Cemetery Committee that we need to make appointments to fill the expired terms of Kitty Henniger, Tom Phillips, and Charles Seaver. Those folks are not eligible for reappointment to the committee. Do you wish to make nominations at the present time, or do you wish to table it to the October meeting? What's your pleasure?
I had actually sent an email to somebody, and I don't remember who, asking if any of the people that we didn't appoint to the, we had all those applications for the Planning Commission?
Yeah.
And I thought, since the Sinking Spring Cemetery was looking at that development, maybe some of those people would be interested in that term. I don't remember who I sent the email to, but could we just maybe contact those folks that had applied and ask if they would be interested in serving the Sinking Spring Cemetery?
I think that would be a very good idea, and we also have, I think if we reach out perhaps to the Historical Society of Washington County, they may very well have some folks in mind, and and we could also ask the three folks that are coming off the committee if they can recommend some folks. So if we would follow Vice Mayor Lowe's suggestion and perhaps put this on the October meeting as well.
We also might solicit Garrett Jackson and some people. I know that he had a program down there recently, and maybe some of those people that were in that program might be interested in being on that committee also.
Is that a nod from Mr.
Yes. Yeah.
Okay, very good, sir. Thank you. All right, so that'll be on the October meeting. Then we have the Recreation Advisory Committee. We have Ms. Berry, who is eligible for a second term. Dr. Moore, whose term has expired. Do you wish to act on these tonight, or do you wish to also just include that on the October meeting?
If I would move that we reappoint Courtney, who is eligible for a second term. Courtney Berry.
Second.
Okay, we have a motion and a second to reappoint Ms. Courtney Berry, who is eligible to serve a second term on the Recreation Committee. And I will ask our clerk to call the roll, please.
Mr. Howard?
Aye.
Mr. Humphries?
Aye.
Mrs. Lowe?
Aye.
Mayor Morgan?
Aye. And Dr. Moore's term has expired. Are there nominees for that position tonight?
That will be a council person, Mr. Mayor.
Okay. Do we have a volunteer who wishes to come forward for that?
I still think we need to, the appointments we make with council people, I think we need to reserve those appointments until we have appointed another council member.
I think that's about the smartest thing I've heard said tonight. And I think you're absolutely correct. That we really, probably should proceed with that in that fashion.
And I have a question since he's here, and I'm going to put him on the spot. But Dr. Moore, Since you know so much about the history of the town of Abingdon, would you be interested in one of those unexpired terms at the Sinking Springs Cemetery Committee? Okay. Just wanted to make sure.
Well, don't say we didn't ask.
Mary Ann will be very
Mary will be really proud of you.
All righty. Very good. Okay, I believe that covers our appointments for this evening. And again, we will have others on the October meeting. Council, do you have any items that you wish to bring to our consideration tonight, or anything you care to report about? Mr. Humphreys?
I have just a couple of small things, and probably some things I forgot that I thought you all might do. One of them is on the tree commission. We're moving forward to formulate a letter to the town to ask for some additional help for Kevin Sigmund in not only pruning but also in looking at disease control and eradication in the town. Kevin is going to be giving for lack of better phraseology, a trimming seminar for a lot of the people in the town shop. And hopefully we'll be able to develop some people from that pool of people to be able to help you on a temporary basis. It's not something that he needs all the time, but it's definitely something that his educational component is going at a loss for something that's very, very important. One of our largest natural resources that we have in the town of Abingdon are trees, and we give them only a secondary thought when we're doing anything, including paving, including our own personal landscaping. Those just get a cursory thought. Anyway, that's the first one. The second one was also the Fields Pen Committee. I'm sorry the chairman's not here tonight, so I'm going to go ahead and speak in his term. Our Daniel Chu is our chairperson, and that committee is going to make a recommendation to the town that the Fields Pen House hire a full-time employee down there, somebody that's vested in the artifacts and the house, rather than somebody that's part-time and does not have a vested interest there other than getting a paycheck and no benefits or anything like that. It's just something that we think that it's probably the time to do. And I say it was unanimous on the Fields Pen Committee to bring that forward. Let's see, there's one more. The other one, excuse me, Mr. Mayor, was I was able to touch on that about restructuring the Fairview Committee, and we've already talked about that. And that's all I have to say. Thank you, sir.
Thank you, sir. Vice Mayor Lowe.
I just have a couple of questions that I don't need the answer to tonight, maybe a work session or something. But I noticed in the recreation report, it said that council was looking at adjustments to potential Sunday closures. If you could maybe get us a report about that. I wanted to, and I probably did read this email, but if you can just refresh my memory, have we started Country Club?
May have started earlier this week on the trenching for the relocation utilities, trying to get the contract out.
Okay.
So the rain's impacted quite a bit.
That's a factor in them getting their materials in for the conduit.
Right, and I would just like to know if anybody from the town contacted the resident that we got the email questions from over in, Mr. Hagee. Okay. And you don't have to, I know we can just do these in work session reports. And I guess the last, and I want to commend you, actually, Kevin. I saw the dog swim day, and, I'm the dog queen up here, so I'm the dog park queen. And I think that's going to be a fun and probably well-attended event. And if nobody knows what I'm talking about, September the
14th from 10 to 12. We're going to have the outdoor pool open for anyone to bring your dog, let them swim, and then we will, as a matter of fact, we're currently treating the pool to actually adjust from humans being in it to animals being in it, so that way it'll be safe for them. And then after that, we will actually be draining the pool, because in September is when we start our reconstruction or the relining of the pool. So it all worked out and it was a good time this year.
Well, that was a great time, and I was in either Greenville or Hendersonville, I don't remember which, but they had a dog swim day at their Parks and Recreation. They had it advertised, so I was really tickled to see that. And the last thing that I wanted to touch on, and I know Councilman Humphreys and Councilman Howard were trying to sign up online for that certified planners class, and I know that the reason we haven't had it in Abingdon is because of the expense. But I've got to say that I think if we can get the cost to something manageable, that it would be doing them and anybody else that was taking it a disservice to take it online, because you just don't get the same information and you just don't get the same feedback. And so I know it's expensive, but a lot of the classes that we send our people to are expensive, and I just think it's awfully important that especially our planning commission members and our council members be able to have participatory feedback in these classes.
Ms. Lowe, if I may, it's not just the cost, it's also the time. It's required two days, 2 work days for people to attend, and that's, of course, people who are volunteering for the commission, and all. Obviously, we have that on our bylaws that they have to go to that. But also the fact that Plan Virginia is no longer doing it. Moved to Virginia Tech. The cost may actually go up.
Oh, they're not doing it anymore? Oh, that's a shame.
The closest it's going to be to us is Blacksburg in January. And we tried down here. We never could get to the required 25. Tech is lowering it to 20 required applicants. So that's a little easier for us. We had 15 at the most last year when we tried it. And that's going out into Wise County, Scott, some of the other places.
That is just a shame, because the feedback that we had was what made the class.
I agree. But that's changed a lot in just the past 5 months. Things changed over the tech.
Well, I have to agree with Vice Mayor Lowe that I can say that taking that class was probably the best piece of training that I had since I was on council, and I considered it to be a highly valuable investment in the future of our town for those of us who went through it. And I'm glad it's online. I do have to agree that it's better if you can be there in person and have that discussion. But we certainly want people to move forward, because we're a lot stronger community when our leadership has had that training. And I didn't mean to interrupt. If you have other...
No, I was just going to ask a question that came to my mind when you said that. So if they're doing it in Blacksburg in January, would they do it interactively at the Higher Ed Center?
That's an email I actually sent to Dr. Chandler. He's now employed by Tech again, doing this class, so he's still doing it. And if we can get the Higher Ed Center on board, we certainly could do that.
I bet you get the incubator on board. Don't you have that capability?
Not anymore. It's something I haven't discussed with our board.
I have a little
spot right now.
He knows their technology.
I have a little bit of experience with Virginia Tech, having gone through the full master's program, and the one problem that I had being able to take online courses, or not online, but interactive courses down here as opposed to up there, is, believe it or not, we've got the technology down here, but Virginia Tech in that particular curriculum does not have the technology.
Wow. Well, that'd be a shame. Okay, that's all my questions.
Again, I do think we should encourage any of our our planners and folks that we're trying to encourage, if they want to go to Blacksburg, take the training. I think we would be prepared to cover reasonable expenses and so forth for folks to do that. And but anyway, it is very, very important that we do it. Mr. Howard?
Well, as your Planning Commission representative, we were given the copy of the 2027 comprehensive plan, which we have gone over it for several meetings now. So hopefully everybody will look this over prior to the next month's meeting. And, I think it's a pretty good document, what we've come up with.
When I'm glancing at this document, I see certain areas, for example, in red and underlined. Does that mean, are those new sections, or that are going to go in there?
The state code requires the town or anyone with a comprehensive plan to update it review it and/or update it every 5 years. And this is their 5-year review. We started 15 months ago this month, actually.
So the red type is the new.
I do,
Type
well, I
is
do,
new,
yeah, okay.
And there are new maps that are included. Please look it over. This is, we've had this advertised, we've had a few people come to meetings and offer suggestions. It's been a project.
I'm just, anything else, Mr. Howard?
Oh, he's looking at me, he's getting ready to answer.
No, I just had one question, and that was because it's something that I talked to, and Jason and I talked about, and that was the project, the Plum Alley project from umpteen years ago, about getting it back on track. And I think that y'all were in the process at one time of getting it back on track, Jason?
It was the last project, but we hadn't talked about it in a couple of months.
BAR, yeah.
It's actually, we listed that as one of the projects in there for the town.
Very good.
Put on the fast track.
Okay.
That's all, Mr. Mayor.
All right, we have good reading here for between now and the next meeting. Mr. Kelly?
Yes, along those same lines, I just want to point out procedurally that there will have to be 2 public hearings held for the adoption. The first will be at the upcoming Planning Commission meeting. And before we expend the cost in advertising before council, I want to ensure that council is comfortable with the document before we put it on the upcoming, I guess that would be the October meeting, Garrett, is that correct?
It would be October 28th Planning Commission.
Okay, so it would be the November council meeting for adoption by the council members. Do you all feel that that gives you enough time to review the document and go through it?
I would hope so. I can remember some times in the past where, we've had some lengthy processes on this, but not in recent years, and I think hopefully it will go fairly smoothly. But I would point out to everybody that, we have a plan. We lay out this plan. In general, it provides a good guideline for what we're going to do in the future, subject to new challenges and opportunities that come along. But we should all keep in mind that it also provides a legal framework for us to take certain actions in the future. And, basically you can say that if it's in the plan, council potentially has the legal authority to do it. So this has legal implications that aren't always obvious to folks when they consider it, and I'd urge everybody to look at it, very carefully, and to also see if there, in terms of what's been presented, and to see if there are other opportunities and so forth that need to be included, that have perhaps not been considered and so forth. But I view this as a very important document. Certainly from council's perspective, we want to be sure that the public is well aware that it's out there and that they have an opportunity to comment and participate in this. Again, hopefully November would be an appropriate time to, I think, to move forward on it. But if necessary, after we look at it, it may require several other phases. I can remember one time some years ago where the council haggled over it for probably 6 months or longer, something like that, as we sorted through it. Anything else, Mr. Howard? Okay, and tell you the truth, I don't have anything more. I think we've covered it for tonight. It's customary to point out a couple of agenda items or events coming up. The Thursday night jams, they are going to be running through, I believe,
3 more weeks.
3 more weeks, and we encourage everybody to come out. There's been some great music at those festivals. I haven't attended many of those evenings myself, but my house is just like being there. We also, excuse me, I'm kind of losing my place here if I can. Yeah, no, that'll never work. I can't see that. I'll have to go to the paper copy of it. The Washington County Fair, something very close to Miss Eisenhower's heart, is coming up September the 9th through the 14th. The We Cycle Children's Consignment Sale at Woodland Hills Woodland Hills Christian Church is coming up the 5th through the 7th of September. Bristol Rhythm and Roots Festival, the 20th through the 22nd. Close to Mr. Humphreys and Mr. Jackson's heart is the Call to Arms celebration at the Abingdon Muster Grounds. I believe, is it Lee Smith that will be reading from her book there?
Sharon McCrum.
Sharon McCrum, excuse me. Another good Southwestern Virginia author.
And that'll be the 22nd.
Okay, the 22nd. Also on the 23rd, the Appalachian School of Law will present the Natural Resources and Energy Law Symposium at the Southwest Virginia Higher Education Center. The council is a sponsor of that event. October 3rd, the Abingdon Crooked Road Music Festival at Heartwood Center. We do have a council meeting and work session and regular meeting on October the 7th, and then the Virginia Municipal League Conference will be coming up in Arlington from the 13th through the 16th. I will mention one other event, which I don't have the document in front of me. I believe there is a special event tomorrow at the food bank.
Feeding Southwest Virginia.
Feeding Southwest Virginia, for encouraging legislators to come. I'm not optimistic that I'm going to be there. I hope some other council members can be.
I have one other thing I meant
Yes, sir.
to bring up, because I got this email today. Jason, help me with this gentleman's last name. It's Krupicka.
Yeah, delegate from Alexandria.
He is Rob.
Yeah.
How do you pronounce his last name?
Rupicka or something like that.
Okay, that sounds good to me, yeah. We had seen him up in Richmond and talked to him about coming and spending some time in
Yeah.
Southwest Virginia with his children. They love to bike. And he emailed me this. I received it on September 2nd. I just returned from a trip to Abingdon. My family and I had a wonderful time in your beautiful town. The history, great restaurants, and beautiful scenery were all wonderful. We are already looking forward to returning. I wanted to write and say, keep up the great work. And that was Rob. He's delegate for the Virginia's 45th district.
I looked him up. He just got elected late last year. It must have been a special election, but he's also one of the governor's appointees to the state school board. So check out his bio. Pretty interesting bio.
I see a hand raised in the back.
I just wanted to say that September 5th is also First Thursday, and that's not just our next Thursday chance, but there will be several art venues open. New King has a new opening, the Arts Depot. We will be having a live auction of the original drawings for the Wolf coloring book that Nadia Gordon gives to us, and then Mallory Fine Art, I know is open also. And I, for one, am very disturbed that John Dew and Jim Smith were not on the agenda tonight.
This is probably about the only time it will ever happen.
Call him up, Mr. Mayor, call him up. Well, hey, Mr.
Do you want to talk?
And Mr. Mayor?
Yes, sir.
Susan Howard bringing it up really brings an opportunity to thank her for all the hard work she's putting in on those first Thursdays. It's been very wonderful. I think they've been very well received. I see feet on the streets on Thursday night, and that's wonderful, and thank you.
Well, and I would also comment about, and we'll come right back to this gentleman here in just a moment, I would comment about the mural that is coming along that Ellen Elms has been working on. That's also generated a lot of interest and enthusiasm and is really going to be a great, colorful spot here in the heart of town, and she's made good progress.
The completion is a ways off, but when we get it done, we're going to have a big celebration.
All righty. Mayor Emeritus Moore.
I want to note that I think this is probably the first time the county administrator has ever attended a council meeting.
All righty. And you are always welcome with us. That being said, we are adjourned. Thank you.